Sweeping, surviving, and squaring. Welcome to Stanley Cupdate for Sunday, 26th of April, 2026. Vic Morren, Neil Smith. Opening game on Saturday saw the Carolina Hurricanes with the opportunity to be the first team to advance to the Final Eight. And they did so with a 4-2 win over the Ottawa Senators, sweeping that series 4-0. They will meet the winner of the Flyers Penguins series. You thought that Ottawa might have decent chance to steal a game in this series. And much like the previous three, they played hard. In the end, they just couldn't execute and finish.
Exactly. And in the end, their defense was just too banged up with Sanderson and Zub out for this fourth game. And to be honest with you, I think Carolina is just that much more advanced of a team at this point. Ottawa's a good up-and-coming young team, but they're not Carolina. And, you would have had to get Carolina to break down in some area, i.e. goaltending, power play, something, in order for Ottawa to stay in this series and make it a long one. Carolina was on their game all the way through.
There was a lineup change for the Hurricanes. Nikolai Ehlers out with a lower body injury, and Nick Delorier in for the Canes in case things got a little bit rough. And after a scoreless first period, it was game on because early in the second, Alexander Nikishin got trucked by Tyler Kleven, and Kleven is wearing a full cage to protect the broken jaw that he suffered earlier in the month. There was no penalty. It was a clean hit. And the Senators actually ended up with a power play because amidst the retaliation, an extra minor penalty taken by Andrei Svechnikov put the Senators on the power play, which was a theme that we saw throughout this game because they had 9 chances with the extra man in this game, including 3 5-on-3s. And this was clearly a decisive part, not only of this game, but of the entire series because Senators had 4 5-on-3s and weren't able to capitalize on any.
Right, and that's the thing. Their power play didn't come through for them. Again, Sanderson and Zub, might have been playing quarterback on these power plays. They weren't there, but certainly they just didn't have enough.
Freddie Anderson played very well throughout this series. Soon after that kerfuffle, made a big stop one-on-one off Tim Stützle, who was snake bit throughout this series. And the physicality continued. Brady Tkachuk with a couple of clean hits. Taylor Hall, Jalen Chatfield. And then another scuffle broke out where Ridley Gregg kind of sucker punched Sean Walker when Walker was already engaged with Warren Foegele. So a lot was starting to go on, and the temperature got raised in this series to a level that I don't think we had seen in the previous 3 games.
Yeah, and I think there was some bad blood because of the Taylor Hall hit in Game 3. I'm sure that's why Coach Brindamore decided to put Delorier into the lineup just to make sure that there was a deterrent to say to anybody, if you're going to try to go after Taylor Hall, we've got this guy. But whenever you've got a Brady Tkachuk team, sooner or later you're going to have some shenanigans go on during the game, and sure enough, the temperature did go up at this point.
Hall certainly wasn't to be deterred because he opens the scoring late in the second period, converting on a nice backhand pass from Mark Jankowski. And that play actually started after Jankowski blocked the shot, got the puck back, neat pass to Hall, and it's 1-0 for the Hurricanes. Then with the Hurricanes shorthanded, it's Ullmark having to make 2 saves. This was the 6th power play for the Senators at that point. It was Drake Batherson deflecting in a Stützle shot less than 2 minutes after the Hall goal, and the game was tied. And so you start to feel a little bit better about the Senators here, that they got the game even, crowd's back in it a little bit, and we head to the third period all even.
And at this point, it looked like it was anybody's game from the score. The third period would tell the tale for the entire game and the entire series.
Logan Stankoven, who had scored in the previous 3 games, goal in each of them, wins a faceoff, and then converts a rebound off a Keandre Miller shot. puck carried off the boards, and Stankhoven scores with the stick between his legs with 10:50 left. And it's Hall's 5th assist of the series. And just the way he's made his presence amidst all of the other star power goal scorers that the Hurricanes have. It's Hall with goal and an assist in this game, and has clearly been one of the decisive players for Carolina as they move on.
And you know what? We always say it, to win in the playoffs, you got to have secondary scoring. You got to have guys pitching in that normally night to night during the regular season don't do it. You know, this is not Seth Jarvis. This is not Sebastian Aho. This is not Shvetnikov. This is Taylor Hall, who a lot of people would think his best days are behind him. But in this series, he looked just like the Taylor Hall we saw play for Edmonton and New Jersey and so on.
And then there's the sacrifice that players are not only willing to make during the regular season, but that always gets amped up during the course of the playoffs. And Seth Jarvis, who'd been relatively quiet in terms of the score sheet, takes a big hit, but he's able to help set up Sebastian Aho for an empty net goal with 2:22 left. Now, Dylan Cousins did score 33 seconds later to get the Senators back within one, and they had a great chance to tie the game. But Jordan Martinook, with Stützle in the high slot and a prime scoring opportunity to get this game even, blocks a shot. Aho gets his second empty netter. It ends up 4-2. And this is a series that if the Senators had ever been able to get a lead, we might have seen something different, because, of course, if you play with the lead, you're also dictating how the game is played, and they didn't lead for a second in the 4 games.
As you said, to dictate the pace of the game, to dictate how the game's going to go, you got to have the lead. When you don't have the lead, when you're behind, you've got to take chances. And when you take chances, then there's an opportunity for the opposition to bounce in on those chances. By the way, Sebastian Aho, with those 2 empty net goals, tied the record for the most empty net goals, which is held by numerous players. The last one having done it was Victor Arvidsson, did it right at the end of March. I looked all that up to see if anybody had gotten a hat trick on empty net goals, and it's never been done.
Before we move on to our next game, I want to sum up this Ottawa power play again. I touched on it a few minutes ago. But in the series, 1 for 21. They had, as we said, 3 more 5-on-3s. In game 4, they had 33 seconds worth in the first period, and then 1:12 and 24 seconds in the second period, that second one carrying actually into the third. But the cumulative in games 3 and 4, they had 3 minutes and 37 seconds of 5-on-3 time. Were not able to score. You did make mention that if Jake Sanderson is playing for the better part of the last 2 games, maybe that's a little bit different. We know Freddie Anderson was excellent. But when I sum this up for the Senators, they get an A for competitiveness, but an F for execution and finish.
Yep, they couldn't finish. They couldn't get the lead, and that pretty much sums up a sweep. You were competitive, you played hard, but you couldn't score, and Carolina is all about scoring, as we know. So I agree with that.
So what would be a day without me complaining about something from the TV or the media end?
Well, it would be like a day without sunshine.
Oh, well, sunshine, I got one for you here, because Chris Mason has done a really nice job as an analyst, not only on the Nashville Predator games, but on these games on TNT and TBS. But one of the rubs that I always get are these reporter interviews with coaches, which, have you ever heard anything that you actually remember coming out of these interviews?
No, never.
One of the questions that really rubs me the wrong way is if somebody starts their question in the way that the answer is so obvious that why would you ask that question? And in Mason's interview with head coach Rod Brindamore, after killing off one of those 5-on-3s, he says, how important was the penalty killing? And then the follow-up question about his captain, Jordan Staal, How important is Jordan Staal as your captain? Well, what do you think those answers are going to be?
Of course. I blame the directors, producers, the people in the truck to tell them what the questions should be instead of allowing them to make them up, because they usually make up bad ones.
But it's also how those questions are phrased. And I think this is where networks need to coach their talent on the proper way to ask questions. But that's for another time, because now we're going to move to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and the Penguins stave off elimination with a 4-2 win in Philly. And they make a change in goal, do the Penguins, moving from Stuart Skinner to Archer Silovs. And if you remember, Silovs played a couple of years ago for the Canucks, did very well when Thatcher Demko and Casey DeSmith were not able to go. Demko more because of an injury, and Silovs stepped in at a 5-5 record and did a really good job getting the Canucks to the second round and to Game 7 against the Oilers before falling.
You know, it also throws off the opposition a little bit that you make a change like that. If you go the same old, well, they've beaten you 3 times in a row, and now you have the same lineup. Maybe Dan Muse was trying to just throw a different wrinkle at the Philadelphia Flyers. Whatever it was, it worked.
I want to ask you about the mindset here, because now the Penguins are down 3-0 entering this game. There's no pressure on them. Everybody's expecting them that they're going to get swept. For the Flyers, this is a big moment for them. And there's an expectation that maybe they didn't have during their run late in the regular season, and certainly for these first 3 games. And you just get a feeling that this game felt different than the other 3, and that suddenly Pittsburgh felt more comfortable being in that underdog role.
Well, I felt it was a different game right off the bat when Karlsson, early in the game, tried to go right in between the 2 Philadelphia Flyer defenders and get to the net after a shot that looked like it was impossible for him to take, and it ended up Zanheim sort of threw it at his own net. Of course, not purposely, but it went off Zanheim's stick, and there was a save made, and then Karlsson got into some pushing there. I was a bit surprised at that. I thought, oh, here they come. They're serious about this one now.
And I think also Sidney Crosby was due to show why he, once again, one of the great players of all time, but only had 1 assist in the first 3 games. But 5 seconds into a Penguins power play late in the first period, Karlsson getting Crosby the puck, and it's a 1-0 lead for Pittsburgh heading into that first intermission. And now the Penguins are going to get the opportunity to play ahead.
Which, as we just talked about with Ottawa and Carolina, is so important to be able to dictate the play and to make the other guys take some chances to try to score to get things even.
Early in the second period, and I think this was really one of the key plays of the game. I'm not going out on a limb here when I say this, but a misplay by Dan Vladar behind his own net. He gets stripped by Rickard Rakell. And just over a minute into the second period, it's a 2-0 game. And I think for the Penguins, this is now starting to become real, that they could play in this game. And this turnover by Vladar, who had been outstanding in the first 3 games, is one of these plays that if the series is going to flip, these are the kind of things that start to happen.
Right. And you know what? Vladar's not a great skater out of the net. He's not a good puck handler. He came out of the net. He hesitated a little bit. He put it into Rakell's feet, and then Rakell was able to do a tiny wraparound type goal. That was a real dagger, because that not only made it 2-0, but it made it 2-0 on a screw up by the Flyers. That's worth 2 goals almost.
Silovs continue to play well, stopped Garnet Hathaway on a 2-on-1 midway through the second period, and then stopped Tyson Foerster on a shorthanded breakaway with 6 minutes left in the period. But before second period expired, Denver Barkey from Trevor Zegras with 4:20 left in the second. It's 2-1 at that point. And then in the final minute of the second, Travis Sanheim hit a post. So the Flyers almost draw even, but as it is, the Penguins take this 2-1 lead heading into the third period.
And that is huge. When you're on the road, you want to just quietly win a game and get home. And that's what the Flyers were about to do.
In the third period, we saw some more brilliance out of Crosby because he outworked Travis Konechny, getting a puck with his skates, and then he kicked it back to Chris Letang, and he wired one past Vladar at the 4:27 mark. Now, 2 minutes and 36 seconds later, it's Konechny scoring to make it a 3-2 game, but Connor Dewar scores the empty netter, and the Pens survive for a Game 5. And when I put a bow on this one, this was just a really strong, detailed game that the Penguins played. And Dan Muse gets this back on the rails for them.
Albeit 3-1, they have to win, obviously, 3 more games in a row. But they're going back to Pittsburgh. Wouldn't surprise me at all that they could beat the Flyers again in Pittsburgh and then have a very difficult Game 6 back in Philadelphia.
But we were talking about the mindset going into this game with the Penguins now with the pressure off and Philly in very uncharted territory. And now you go back to Pittsburgh, and if the Penguins get the first goal and they're playing with the lead in this game, where does that shred of doubt now start to creep into the Flyers?
Well, it definitely will. They're a young team. They're a team that hasn't been in the playoffs for a lot of years. There will be some self-doubt if Pittsburgh can get the lead in this game, no doubt about that. I just think the Flyers are strong enough that they are going to win this series, in my opinion, which isn't a stretch when they're up 3-0 and now it's 3-1. But you never know. The Penguins are obviously a more mature team. They've been around a lot longer. Their core has been anyway. And we'll see. It's going to be a very interesting game Monday night back in Pittsburgh.
7:00 Eastern on ESPN. Last game we're going to hit on is the Minnesota-Dallas game, and this is a 3-2 win for the Wild to even that series, 2 apiece. Game went late into the first overtime. But once again, for Minnesota, Matt Zuccarello and Yakov Trenin remain out. And it's Jason Robertson opened the scoring for Dallas at 5:35 of the first. But then Brock Faber, who I think has been maybe the best player for either team in this series, answers with his third of the series, a long-range shot that glanced in off Miro Heiskanen.
No, Faber has been fantastic, and Robertson gets that first goal that we say is so important, and it was. But the Wild answer right back.
I thought in the second period, Dallas really started to take this game to the Wild, and they had a sequence where they were in the Minnesota end for about 2 minutes nonstop and just couldn't get that prime scoring chance or draw a penalty. And the Wild being able to survive that, I think, was key. And after surviving that, big scare in this game because Stars defenseman Nils Lundqvist suffered a deep facial laceration when he was clipped by the skate of Michael McCarron. He's going to be reevaluated in Dallas. But you could tell the way that towel was being held to his face, that wasn't just a nick.
Well, you could see it when he was coming off the ice, but long before he got the towel put on there, you could see that the blood was streaming down his face. And then when you saw the replay and saw exactly how he got cut, it was scary. Those skates are so sharp. The amount of force coming up from McCarron's leg and then his foot hitting him in the face, it's a scary moment. Let's hope he's okay and they can get some plastic surgery done so that he can not be scarred.
Late in the period, it was Heiskanen with a power play goal from the top of the circle, high glove side, with 35 seconds left in the period. So the Stars now in the driver's seat, taking a 2-1 lead into the third. And Jake Ottinger made big stop on Marcus Johansson early in the third. And as this got to the midway point, I'm starting to think, you know what? Maybe Dallas is going to hold on here. I think they had this game where they wanted. But then Ryan Hartman really starts to make his presence felt because in the defensive zone, he lays a big hit on Justin Richkovian. And then at the other end, there was a scramble in front. Wyatt Johnston slid the puck through the crease. It actually hit the goalpost, sat in the crease, and Hartman swept the puck out of the crease. So you could just see right there that this game should have been 3-1. It's still 2-1, and sure enough, it's Marcus Foligno with the game-tying goal on a play started by Quinn Hughes. It's Foligno banging home a carom off the end boards, and we're all square.
And the save by Hartman was amazing. I mean, down in the goal crease, hit him in the shoulder, I believe, and then he swept it away with his hand, with his glove, swept it behind the net. It was a great defensive play by Ryan Hartman. Can't be overstated. And that gave the Minnesota Wild the opportunity to stay in the game.
I thought the Stars were stronger in the early part of the overtime, but then things started to change, and Matt Boldy really started to have a major presence here. With 5:45 left in the overtime, it was Jake Ottinger having to make a great save on Boldy, and then soon after that, Boldy actually had a goal disallowed for a kicking motion, but not to be denied. He deflects in Captain Jared Spurgeon's shot with 29 seconds left in the overtime. Beautiful deflection because he actually pulled the puck backwards on the tip into the net. We are all even, and Game 5 scheduled back in Dallas, 8 o'clock Tuesday on ESPN2. This was a real good game.
It really was. And Matt Boldy was excellent. You notice him every time he's on the ice. Ottinger made some terrific saves on the Wild. So this is a real good series. Of all the series that are going on right now, this might be the best one.
Did we expect anything else, though?
No.
I mean, if there was one series that it was okay for either me, you, or Craig Button to pick going 7 games, it was going to be this one. These teams are that.
Yeah, they are, and they're powerhouses. They're both great teams. I'll say it again for the umpteenth time. It's sad that one of them has to lose in the first round.
And somebody is going to sometime later this week. Sunday's schedule, a quartet of Game 4s, 2 o'clock Eastern. The Sabres are at the Bruins on TNT. Sabres leading this series 2-1. What are you looking for?
I want to see whether or not Buffalo can get a game there in Boston and get another one, rather, and see if they can put a stranglehold on this. I mean, this is the biggest game of this series because, as I've said before, if Buffalo wins this game, they've got a stranglehold of 3-1. If the Bruins win it, much like the Wild and the Dallas Stars, it's back to a brand new series in a 2 out of 3. This is obviously of paramount importance that the Bruins win this game and not let the Sabres get a stranglehold.
Yes or no answer. Sabres get a power play goal in this game.
No.
At 4:30 on TNT, it's the Avalanche and Kings. Avs lead this series 3-0. And LA, as we have said, this was probably the one series that went to 3-0 that I think the Kings probably deserved a little bit better fate based on the way they played. But the reality is this could be the swan song for Captain Anze Kopitar.
And it probably will be because LA does not play well at home or hasn't during the regular season. And Colorado is just a powerhouse. So it wasn't hard to call this series when you see this is 1 versus 8 in the West. And it's playing out like 1 versus 8.
7 o'clock, ESPN gets back into the mix now that their NFL draft coverage is complete. And it's the Canadiens hosting the Lightning with the Habs with a 2-1 series lead. All 3 of these games have gone to overtime. I don't put it past the Lightning being able to win 3 straight games if they go down. However, there is something in the water in Montreal, and I don't think the Lightning want to put themselves in that position because the Canadiens have gone toe-to-toe with them throughout. There is no mistaking the evenness of these teams, both coming in with 106 points this year.
Yeah, and again, repeating what I said about Buffalo, Boston, and I'm going to say again about Edmonton, Anaheim when we get there, this is a crucial game. It's Game 4. Montreal leads 2-1. I'll say that I think Tampa will win this game and send it back to Tampa, tied at 2.
Last game of the night, 9:30. And as you just mentioned, it's the Oilers and the Ducks. Anaheim leading this 2-1. ESPN has this game as well. I got to see more from Edmonton without the puck. This series, it's been pond hockey. And I like the point that you made the other day. This isn't real playoff hockey. And the team that advances in this series is going to have to really start to stiffen up on the defensive side of the puck. I think it's okay for now for both of these teams because they play very similar styles. And certainly the goaltending for Anaheim with Lucas Dostal has been just a bit better than what the Oilers are getting. But both of these teams have to become more responsible defensively. And I don't even know if we're going to see it in this series.
You know what, Vic? It wouldn't surprise me that Edmonton loses this game and goes home down 3-1. Even with Connor McDavid, even with Leon Draisaitl, even with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, even with Bouchard, I just don't like the way they're playing. Anaheim can score. Anaheim can also make you keep your head up. You want to play pond hockey? Let's have at it. They can do that. So unless Edmonton tightens up or McDavid and Draisaitl find a way to do their fantastic things they do during the regular season, I just think that Anaheim is going to take a 3-1 lead.
I want to see if Chris Knobloch's team has more attention to perhaps having that third forward high, not allowing the Ducks to use their speed through the neutral zone, and certainly the coverage in front of the net for both teams has to improve.
Definitely has to if they want to win this series and then want to do anything in the next round.
Before we leave, tip of the hat to our friend Kenny Albert, who in the Penguins-Flyers game on Saturday evening called his 1,545th nationally televised game. That is the most of any announcer among the four major sports. He surpassed Dick Stockton, and Kenny's legend just continues to grow.
And he's a young man, and he'll be going for a long time. So that number of 1,545 nationally televised games as the play-by-play announcer is phenomenal. But that number is going to go much, much higher. Kenny's a great announcer and a better person.
He is. Hey, I can't wait until we get to 1545. Think we'll ever see that?
Yeah, well, I don't know. You better look at your birth certificate there.
Reach us individually at Neil@NHLWraparound.com or Vic@NHLWraparound.com. We're on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. Leave a review or subscribe, and also weigh in with your opinion on who you believe will win these opening round series. This just in, Carolina, Ottawa, now off the board. You can also find us on X, Instagram, TikTok at RayD8.tv and Buzzard.com. That's BZZR.com. Our website is NHLWraparound.com. And check out our latest spring cleaning that we dropped on Friday with the Nashville Predators. We'll have Winnipeg and San Jose coming this week, perhaps Ottawa as well now. And we will also continue to do these spring cleanings as teams get eliminated during the course of the playoffs. So, on behalf of Neil, I am Vic, and we will speak with you again on Monday.